without relying on Google, Facebook, or ClickBank. We're creating new...
Well, we are just getting in video of President Donald Trump taking questions from reporters on his way back to Washington, D.C. Let's take these as we are just getting them into the newsroom.
Shit, Biden didn't take any questions. He hid in the basement.
Making a lot of progress getting it stopped. We just want to see thousands of soldiers a week stop dying. Because they're dying at numbers that probably haven't seen since the Second World War for no reason whatsoever. It's a shame. It's a shame. So I think we are making progress. It's step by step. There's tremendous hate.
Like, subscribe, share, by the way.
The leaders, what you call the whole situation leaders. But
yeah, their arthritis has me fucked up.
And the Middle East, a lot of things are happening with respect to Iran. And we'll see if we can get something done. And if not, it's going to be a bad situation. Very, very bad.
Oil sanctions that you mentioned today, when will they start?
So we have a couple. We have the secondary tariffs on Iran, and we'll probably...
Well, we gotta start producing that oil, Trump. That's fucking is really high right now.
But if you remember, I did that.
Not as high as Obama's gas.
6 years ago, and it worked very well, to put it mildly. And if the election weren't rigged, you would have a situation where there would be no problem with Iran today, but it was. Biden.
And also, nobody would have saw how horrible of a job Joe Biden did running the country. Oh, by the way, about the title for the video, since I'm really not talking about that right now, and that's not what popped up. But we're just gonna get into that real quick. You know, Obama fucking deported more people than Trump did, and fucking, he just didn't say he did it. Like, everyone's giving a shit fucking about Trump deporting people, but fucking Obama deported more people. Anyways.
What he was doing, obviously, and we have a very rough situation in the Middle East because of that. You ended up with October 7th, and you would have never had October 7th, and you would have never had Russia going into Ukraine likewise. We're going to make a decision on secondary tariffs.
And they're really not so wrong for it, in my opinion, going in Ukraine.
They're going to make a deal, then we're never going to put secondary tariffs on. We're going to hope they have a great, long, and successful life as a country. But we'll see what happens. It's very interesting. I can't imagine them doing anything else but making a deal. I would prefer a deal to the other alternative, which I think everybody in this plane knows what that is. And that's not going to be pretty, and I do not prefer that.
Mr. President, on the tariffs, you said that you were, at one point, that the tariffs Tuesday would be more conservative than what people might think.
It's these fucking potholes. We're fighting for these immigrants.
Maybe now looking to make the tariffs higher. So are you weighing higher tariffs, or?
The tariffs
God damn, there's no avoiding
will
this
be
shit.
far more generous than those countries were to us.
Curb to curb,
Meaning
fucking potholes.
they will be kinder than those countries were to the United States of America over the decades. They ripped us off like no country's ever been ripped off
Another
in
bridge
history.
of nothing but potholes.
And we're going to be much nicer than they were to us, but it's substantial money for the country.
God damn, big potholes.
On the tariffs that you're planning, so...
Quick interruption. With how much money this fucking mayor spent on these fucking immigrants, I shouldn't be driving over one goddamn pothole. If he could spend all that money on those fucking immigrants, I shouldn't be hitting one fucking pothole.
You're expecting to hit something like 10 to 15 countries, is that right? All of the countries. Is it across the board?
I don't know who told you 10 or 15 countries.
We heard that. So we heard that you were going to aim for the 10%.
But you didn't hear it from me.
Okay, so how many countries will be in that initiative?
Hey, you didn't hear it from me.
You'd start with all countries, so let's see what happens. There are many countries.
Right.
I heard a rumor about 15 countries, 10 or 15.
So you're starting with all countries?
Well, trade with Asia, and I wouldn't say anybody is treated as fairly or nicely, and but we are going to treat them. We're going to be much more generous to them in terms of heart. We're going to be much more generous than they were to us.
You said that you were not joking about a third term, about possibly wanting a third term. Does that mean you're not planning to leave office on January 20th?
I'm not looking at that, but I'll tell you, I have had more people ask me to have a third term, which is in a way it's a fourth term because the other election, the 2020 election was totally rigged.
I agree.
So it's actually sort of a fourth term in a certain way. I just don't want the credit for the second because Biden was so bad. He did such a bad job. And I think that's one of the reasons that I'm popular, if you want to know the truth. I think I'm popular because we've done a great job. I think we've had the...
You can only run for president 2 times, but you know what he should do? On the next election, he should run as the vice president, so that way, because you can run for vice presidents as many times as you want. But actual president, you can only run for 2 times. It's just, I don't know, kind of stupid. I mean, I wouldn't mind him being Trump president for the next 8 years.
Almost 100 days of any president. And
yeah, he's done a lot.
People are saying that it's an honor. We're bringing back our country. We're respected as a country again. And we're strongly respected. And people are amazed. I was with some very important people today, and they said that they've never seen a turnaround of a country as fast as this. Even look at our border. We have nobody coming in. And you can come into our country, but you have to come in legally. But we have nobody coming in to our country. It's almost shut down. They've never seen anything like this.
At an appropriate precedent limits a president to 2 terms. Is it your understanding that they have to
I don't even want to talk about it. I'm just telling you, I've had more people say, please run again. I said, we have a long way to go before we even think about that. But I've had a lot of people.
You can at least run as vice president.
Do you think that's an appropriate precedent to set, even if it wasn't you in this position, to see a president serve a 3rd term?
That'd be cool.
I don't want to talk about a 3rd term now because no matter how you look at it, we got a long time to go. We have a long time. You know, we have almost 4 years to go. And that's a long time. But despite that, so many people are saying, you've got to run again. They love the job we do. Most importantly, they love the job.
I like what he's doing.
So you said you're upset with Putin. Would you say your relationship with Vladimir Putin is at its lowest point right now?
No, I don't think so. I don't think he's going to go back on his word. You're talking about Putin. I don't think he's going to go back on his word. I've known him for a long time. We've always gotten along well. Despite the Russia hoax, it's a hoax created by Clinton and Schiff and all of these lunatics. And that really was a dangerous point. That was a very dangerous thing they did to this country. It was a pure, unadulterated scam, hoax. But no, I think he'll be okay. But if he isn't, I was disappointed in a certain way. Some of the things that were said over the last day or two having to do with Zelensky, because when he considers Zelensky not credible, he's supposed to be making a deal with him, whether you like him or you don't like him. So I wasn't happy with that. But I think he's going to be good.
Oh, goddamn, that house got fucked up.
Secondary tariffs.
They just lit that shit on fire. Looks like a thing out of Detroit.
We put
That's
secondary tariffs on.
Hey, that house must have burned over the weekend. I'm pretty sure I would have noticed that sooner. It must have happened over the weekend. That's a pretty big fire. God damn. Fire.
As you know, in Venezuela, and it's had a very strong impact on Venezuela. You know that every ship just got out and they left. A lot of them left. They dropped the hoses right into the ocean and they left. They didn't want to be there for a minute because they didn't want those tariffs to catch on, or they didn't want me to see them there. So the Venezuela secondary tariffs, all secondary tariffs are very strong because essentially it says if you disobey our orders, you cannot do business in the United States of America, and that's the cash cow.
That is why the Chinese companies buying Russian oil as well, if you plan to go ahead with those.
So if
Well, we drill
in the case
our
of
own oil.
Venezuela, as you know, China pulled up anchor and left.
Venezuela oil sucks, by the way. It's real dirty, nasty oil that's real hard to refine. We don't want Venezuelan oil, just saying.
They had 2 ships there and they left. they left empty.
For
They
good
didn't wanna
reason.
take a chance. No, we're not playing games. Okay, any other questions?
Will you clarify, are you planning to leave office January 20th, 2029?
They asked
Or
again.
might not?
Go ahead, any other questions?
They keep asking the same fucking
On
question.
TikTok. The
We're
deadline's coming
working on
up.
TikTok. We have a lot of potential buyers. There's tremendous
Yeah,
interest
make
in
TikTok an American
The
company.
decision's going to be my decision, as you know, through Congress.
I installed TikTok and then I uninstalled it. I was like, yeah, I'm still not feeling this too much.
They've given me the power to make the decision. We have a great team of people essentially taking bids. We have a lot of people that want to buy TikTok. We're dealing with China also on it because they may have something to do with it, and we'll see how that goes. But it's
Doesn't China
it's
own
something I
TikTok?
think you're gonna have. I'd like to see TikTok remain alive. I mean, I'll be honest, selfishly speaking, I won the young vote by 36 points. Republicans generally don't do very well with the young vote, and I think a lot of it could have been TikTok. It could have been Joe Rogan, and it could have been a lot of things, but it was also TikTok.
What about
TikTok
me?
is it's very interesting. There's a lot of people.
Damn, Trump, you can't give my little puny YouTube channel a shout out and talk about Joe Rogan. What about me fucking trying to convince immigrants to vote for you in Chicago? Anyways, what about that?
If no deal, will you extend the deadline?
Oh, there'll be a deal with TikTok. We would.
Mr. President, Russian President. Is there a deadline for Russian President Vladimir Putin to agree to?
Psychological deadline. If I think they're tapping us along, I will not be happy about it.
Do you think they are right now?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Corvette.
I think he wants to make a deal. And I think Zelensky, by the way, I see he's trying to back out of the rare earth deal. And if he does that, he's got some problems. Big problems. We made a deal on rare earth. And now he's saying,
Which
well,
we
you know, I want to renegotiate the deal. He wants to be a member of NATO. Well, he was never going to be a member of NATO. He understands that. So if he's looking to renegotiate the deal, he's got big problems. Go ahead.
Mr. President, have you had any more outreach from the automakers, and are you reconsidering that at all?
No. The automakers are going to make a lot of money. The American automakers. Or international automakers, if you're talking about they're going to build in the United States. The people that are going to make money are people that manufacture cars in the United States. Outside of the United States, that's going to be up to them.
That's good.
I don't care too much about that.
Make
But,
GM great
you have a lot
again.
of companies coming into the country to manufacture cars.
Hey, and if Trump ever sees this, yeah, I know. If Trump ever sees this, you need to tell, what's his face? Tell that dickhead at General Motors to, tell that dickhead at General Motors to, what do you call it? Tell them to start making good gas cars again.
As you know, the Auto Workers Union, I did great. I won Michigan by a lot. But the Auto Workers Union...
I want to see them remake the 70 to the 72 Chevelle, but like futuristic and not electric as a gas car, and do the same thing with the Camaro, but do it as like a third-gen body style, but futuristic.
Fantastic to me, but now they're really fantastic. And even Sean Fain, who I don't know, but he obviously wasn't a supporter of mine. He's a Democrat. He said wonderful things about Donald Trump. He said, I can't believe this is finally happening. People that manufacture automobiles in the United States are going to make money the likes of which they've never seen before. But beyond that, we have the computer companies, the chip companies, the pharmaceutical companies.
Oh,
We have
somebody's
lumber,
thrown in
we
that
have
gate
everything.
on the
Steel.
left.
They're all going to do really well as long as they do their product in the United States. Thank you very much, everyone.
Discussion about stagflation now. Is that something that you're worried about, given the impact of your efforts?
We're gonna go to Robert
readjust the
Kennedy
economy?
next.
I haven't heard that term in years. No, I don't know anything about it. This country is going to be more successful than it ever was. It's going to boom. We're going to have boom
that-
down you.
Let's hear Robert Kennedy next. Not this stupid little commercial.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Governor Morrissey.
This is
I'm
for
very,
you
very
Democrat
happy to be
lovers.
here at St. Joseph's, and I'm really happy to be here in West Virginia. I just want to say a few words about West Virginia, because West Virginia is a state that holds a special place in the hearts of every Kennedy. In the 1960 campaign, I was living in McLean, Virginia. But my parents disappeared into West Virginia for about 6 weeks. And we didn't see them, as well as all my aunts. My uncle, President Kennedy, who was then in the Senate, was running for president. And the consensus wisdom around the country was that a Roman Catholic could not be elected president of the United States. Al Smith had run against President Roosevelt. He was a Catholic from New York, Catholic governor, very, very popular. And when people found out that he was Catholic, there was a resurgence of the Ku Klux Klan across his burn.
That guy probably gets paid so much money to stand there and hold a flag.
All across the country. And he lost the election catastrophically. And people just felt, Americans felt, and the pundits all felt, that America would never elect a Catholic president. When my uncle decided to run for president, he knew that he had to win West Virginia. West Virginia had the lowest number of Catholics, less than 2% of the population was Catholic. And it was thought to be a place where there was a lot of anti-Catholic prejudice. It had voted overwhelmingly against Al Smith. It was critical to my uncle's campaign that he win this state and show the country that a Catholic could win the presidency. Well, he came down to West Virginia, and his objective was to shake the hands of every person in West Virginia. And I think he came very close. And my parents came down, my uncles, my aunts. Luckily, we had a lot of Kennedys. And they all came down, and they spent time really getting to know the people in West Virginia and understanding the issues in the state, the problems, and those things stayed with him throughout his presidency. And
just so you know, I think he's got Parkinson's disease or something. That's why he talks like that.
Election day, he won the state of West Virginia overwhelmingly. And during his presidency, he always believed that he would not be president if he had not won this state. And he never forgot that relationship and that bond that he had formed and that so many members of my family had formed with the people in the state, the affection and the warmth with which they were greeted and embraced. And it's something that now, 70 years later, everybody in our family has this very, very strong affection and bond to this state. And I've been lucky enough that I've been able to spend a lot of my career doing work in this state, in the mining country, and trying to end pollution and give people a chance to live healthier lives. I want to thank Governor Morrissey for his visionary leadership.
Wow, 39 now.
I got to know Governor Morrissey early in the transition. We were both down in Palm Beach working on the transition in Mar-a-Lago. And we were both invited to stay during that time at Dr. Oz's house. And I got to know, I said to Dr. Morrissey, or Governor Morrissey, the first time I saw him, I said, "You look like you ate, Governor Morrissey." And there was a lot of talk about getting healthy again, and I'm very happy that he's invited me to be his personal trainer. And I am going to put him on a really rigorous regimen. And
oh, wonderful. What's up? What'd you say?
We're going to make him raise your hand if you want Governor Morrissey to do a public wake.
Oh, I totally covered that in the beginning. I covered it real quick. I got to retitle the video.
Once a month.
Who needs to get deported, though, is the motherfuckers at that Marine base. They deport them motherfuckers straight up out that Marine base. And you know what's crazy? The address that guy gave me fucking to go to, I went there. It's like a rundown fucking warehouse. It's like a rundown fucking warehouse looking place, kind of like this building right here. It's all rundown and decrepit looking. Why can't the Americans go live in? How about you put those fucking families in the warehouse, and you put the people in the warehouse in the Marine base, which are supposed to be American citizens, but there ain't none in that Marine base.
And then when
That's
he's
who needs to
lost
get
30
deported.
pounds, I'm going to come back to the state and do a celebration and a public weigh-in with him. You're welcome, Denise. He left me an open door. So anyway, we have a public health crisis in this country, and unfortunately, West Virginia is leading the way. There's the highest obesity rate of any state in our country. This year, you pulled ahead of Mississippi. It has the highest rate of chronic disease in the country. And so I'm very, very grateful to Governor Morrissey for his visionary leadership in getting West Virginia to lead the way in transitioning off of processed foods. When my uncle was president, 3% of Americans had chronic disease. We spent zero on chronic disease in this country. Zero. There was no medications for it. Today, we spend $1.3 trillion on chronic disease every year. It's about 90% of our healthcare budget. For most of my life, the Republicans and Democrats have been fighting about a healthcare plan, about treatment, usually a sick care plan,
not that one.
About how to treat all this illness. Should it be Obamacare, the affordable health plan? Should it be public-private partnership? Should it be a single payer?
Right,
these are what the big battles that you read about on Capitol Hill. The real battle is...
That was Johnny's Pizza's place, in fact. That was the name of it, Johnny's.
That we're getting sicker and sicker every year. And it's really just a debate about who's going to pay the treatment. Nobody has been focused on how do we get ourselves less sick. And it's like moving deck chairs around on the Titanic. No matter what you do, our country is going to go bankrupt. It's now, when I was a kid, diabetes rates in children were almost zero. Juvenile diabetes, a typical pediatrician would see one case of diabetes in his lifetime over a 40 or 50-year career. Today, 1 out of every 3 kids who walk through his office door is pre-diabetic or diabetic. 38% of teens are now diabetic, 50% of adults. A few years ago, it's not a mystery about where this is coming from. 20 years ago, there was no diabetes in China.
Oh, there's the Cadillac.
Today, 50% of the population is diabetic.
So
why is that? They built 20,000 fast food joints in China and started selling American processed food. And it is costing us, we are now paying more just for diabetes, mitochondrial dysfunction, than we are for our military. And, financially, it is bankrupting our country. We're now spending more to service our debt, and the biggest piece of that debt is coming from healthcare. We're now paying more to service it than we are for our military budget. Within about 10 years, if we continue on this trajectory, 50 cents out of every tax dollar that you pay to the federal government is going to go to servicing the debt. Within 15 years, 100%. It's not sustainable.
Seems like it's already
existential. If you love our country, you got to take care of yourselves.
Yeah, don't be a fat ass.
Trump says that he wants to make America healthy again, but he wants to make it strong again. We cannot have a strong country if we have sick citizens. President Trump says that he wants to restore the American dream. But a person who is healthy has 1,000 dreams. A person who is sick has only one. And there is 60% of our country now that has only one dream, which is to get better. And we need to give them a pathway to doing that. And the pathway is through food. Food is medicine. It treats us in different ways, and it treats our health. It treats our mental health. There was a recent study that showed that when they switched the diet in prisons, that violence went down to a whole food diet. That violence went down by about 70%. When they switched the diet in juvenile detention centers to whole food diet, violence went down 100%. There's a scientist at Harvard now who is curing schizophrenia with a carnivore diet. So the loneliness, the dispossession, the crisis that we have in mental health, in suicide, in ADD, ADHD, all of these are linked, and particularly to the dyes. It's very clear the dyes that Governor Morrissey is banning, all of them are linked in very, very strong studies to ADHD and to cancers. So we're seeing an explosion in cancers in this country. We're seeing an explosion in infertility. Teenagers today have 50% of the sperm count and 50% of the testosterone of 68-year-old men. Girls are now reaching puberty 6 years earlier than they're supposed to, between 10 and 13 years old. Other countries are not experiencing this. We've seen autism rates go from 1 in 10,000 when I was a kid, 1 in 10,000, 1 in every 36 kids today, 1 in 22 boys in California. And the obesity rates have gone up to, as I said, 50% in adults, or 70% overall obesity or overweight, from 3%. In Japan, it's still 3%, because they're not eating these foods. They have nutrition programs in the foods where they have a nutritionist in every school who's in charge of the menu, and they eat healthy foods, so they don't have these illnesses. And we, when I was a kid, we were the healthiest, most robust people in the world. And today we're the sickest. 60% of Americans, from 3% when my uncle was president, 60% today have chronic disease. And it's not happening in other countries. During COVID, we had 16% of the COVID deaths in this country. We only have 4.2% of the world's population. So we literally did worse than any country in the world. And when you ask CDC why are Americans dying from COVID at higher rates than any place on earth when we have all the money, they said, well, it's not our fault. It's because Americans are so sick. That is their fault. And we're going to change that.
Your fault. You're a fat ass.
But they said that, according to...
Unless you have a disease or something like that that's causing you to be a fat ass, that's not your fault. What is this shit? What the fuck? Stupid fucking video. Churros. Trying to get back. Oh, there.
According to CDC, the average American who died from COVID had 3.8 chronic diseases. So they had diabetes, they had obesity, and maybe asthma, and one other thing. And it was the chronic disease really that was killing them. Healthy kids were not dying. Healthy Americans were not dying of COVID. It was a disease that attacked the sick. And that's true with all infectious diseases. If we can make ourselves, the biggest thing that we can do for pandemic preparedness is to make ourselves healthy again. We're now 74% of American kids cannot qualify for military service because of chronic disease. So this is affecting our national security. It's destroying our economy. It is existential for this country. And we need to change it. And I am so happy that you have a visionary governor in this state and that West Virginia is now leading the way. And I want to commend Governor Morrissey not only for his vision, but for his courage, because it's very, very hard. And for these legislatures who are pushing this bill, all of them are getting calls every day from the big soda companies, the sugar soda and the fake food companies. We're not eating food, we're eating food-like substances. And I'll tell you what happened. I was involved in the tobacco litigation back in the late 1980s. And the tobacco companies were, at that time, the cash richest companies in the world. But they saw the writing on the wall. They saw that the consumer base was turning against them. People were stopping smoking, and that they were being prosecuted and sued successfully. So they settled those lawsuits, but they also started shifting their resources to diversify their companies. And they went out and they bought the food companies. So by 1994, the two biggest food companies in the world were R.J. Reynolds and Philip Morris, tobacco companies. They took about 10,000 scientists who were all engaged in nefarious ways to make tobacco more addictive, and they put them to work making food addictive, inventing ingredients in the laboratory that would make it do things to food. For example, they found out that food that you fill up, your brain tells you your stomach is filled, in part by counting the number of times you chew. So they started adding softeners to our food.
Like soy?
So that you wouldn't chew so much.
I don't
so
know
you'd have
soy
a sense that you're unsatisfied, you're insatiable, you're never full. So that you keep pouring it down
Talking
your mouth.
to you, fat ass.
That's just one of the many things they did. They added sodium and sugar. Sugar is as addictive as crack, and it's almost as bad for you. It kills you just as surely, it just kills you a little slower. It feeds tumors, it destroys your body, it destroys your brain. And they added more and more sugar to make us addicted to their products. And these companies are now, just like the tobacco companies were, are flooding into the offices of your state leaders and legislatures and the governor. And they're telling him he's making a big mistake. They're telling him that they're going to stop writing checks, that they're going to run people against them, that they're going to destroy their political careers. And Governor Morrissey was telling me that he met with the soda companies this week. And they said to him, you need to be educated about this. And they said, food stamps is not a nutrition program. He came in with his Diet Coke, and he said, is there anything nutritious in here? And they were like, no, of course not. But food stamps is not a nutrition program. And he said, it's called SNAP, Supplementary Nutrition Assistance Program. It's supposed to be nutrition. It's not supposed to be food-like substances that are actually poisoning us. And so, but it takes a lot of courage to stand up to these companies the same way that it did to stand up to big tobacco. But these men and women, your leaders, Governor Morrissey, is standing up for you. And we all need to stand up for ourselves and take care of ourselves. It's an act of patriotism. If you love this country, you need to start taking care of yourselves. And I want to I'm also say this, that